Thank you so much for checking the channel today. My name is Agabus. This is your financial education channel. Today we're going to take a look at Cathie Wood and her understanding and idea around her Bitcoin spot ETF that is coming through its final deadline in January. Let's tune in to CNBC television on YouTube and see what they have to say.
Let's talk about these ETFs, and then I want to go broad and sort of get your sense of where the market is and where crypto's going and what's happening here. But tell us about these ETFs specifically and what you're trying to do.
Yes, with our partner 21 Shares, which is the largest crypto ETP provider in the world, mainly European focused.
ETP is exchange traded products, not to be confused with ETFs, which are exchange traded funds.
We are launching 5 ETFs. The strategies are going to be around Bitcoin futures, Ethereum futures. One will be Bitcoin futures and cash. One will be Bitcoin futures and Ethereum futures. And then the last one will be broader Bitcoin and companies exposed to digital assets, right, equities.
The fifth one that you mentioned would be, there's a couple other funds that are out there already that are similar to that, where you can buy ETF funds that primarily focus on publicly held companies that own a large share of Bitcoin, say MicroStrategy or Riot Blockchain or Tesla. If they're a bit new to me, the futures contracts with cash, I'm going to do some digging into that one, but futures contracts are not the same as a spot ETF. A spot ETF, which is trying to get approval, would be buying Bitcoin or having it priced in the current spot price that you see fluctuating minute by minute. The futures contract is basically legalized betting, in my opinion, on what people think the price of Bitcoin is going to be down the road. So it's a very watered down, product compared to a spot ETF. From MicroStrategy as well as Max Kaiser has both said that a Bitcoin futures contract ETF is not nearly as good or as credible as a spot Bitcoin ETF, and Max kind of a junk product compared to a spot Bitcoin ETF.
Dress rehearsal in your mind for a moment in which the SEC says, okay, cat's out of the bag, you can actually issue an ETF that's directly invested in Bitcoin.
Well, it certainly is a dress rehearsal. We think there's a place. I think these strategies will be more probably institutionally focused, and then I think the spot coin Bitcoin ETF will be perhaps more retail focused.
Is that something you want to do eventually?
A spot Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yes. What's interesting about it is, if you look at the pecking order, our filing is next in line.
No, I know you're on the list. So
yes.
the question. So let me ask you about that, because I think, and the question is actually at $36,000. Do you think that the move that we've seen in Bitcoin over the last, I don't know, what, 2 months now?
Now, the Bitcoin to date return from January 1st, as you can see in this corner here, is up 119%. Now, for are poo-pooing Bitcoin or poo-pooing cryptocurrencies, when you look at any asset for that matter, that's up over 100% in 1 year, I would argue that people have to start to understand why. Just to say it's tulip mania, it's all a frenzy, it's all yada yada, I would absolutely disagree with them and say, boy, if you see these things going up 50%, 80%, 100% or more, it's a requirement as a investor to understand the why something is going up so dramatically.
Sort of a pent-up demand or an anticipation that the SEC, because folks like BlackRock and Fidelity and you and others have made these applications, have this sense that it's more likely to happen now than it was a year or two ago.
Yeah,
and is that misguided? Is that realistic? What is that?
I think what has happened, the change, is that the SEC actually asked us questions. I think asked us questions, asked BlackRock, probably has asked a lot. Whereas before, our filings were just rejected out of hand.
Okay.
So that is moved.
Once Fidelity got involved, in a way, the SEC had to start taking some of these things seriously. When the judge this summer said, no, you can't hold this thing up, you have to let them go through with the filing, then there's not much more that the SEC can do. The SEC is to protect individual investors, to make sure that what is available in the marketplace isn't snake oil salesman products. However, the SEC isn't there to tell folks you should or should not invest in certain things. It's just there to make sure there's full disclosure of what you're investing in so that you are an informed consumer. As long as ETFs are providing full disclosures and full information, just like the judge said a few months ago, it seems as if there's not much more that the SEC or government can do to stop it, because they are doing their due diligence, so investors have a good idea of what they're going to invest in.
Movement significant, and over the years I've gotten to know the research people at the SEC, and I'm very impressed, and I was impressed by the questions they asked us too. So,
what were the kinds of questions they asked?
A lot of them were very technical. They're all about protecting the consumer, and of course, the showstopper, at least from Gary Gensler's point of view, is he thinks Bitcoin can be manipulated, and this is a decentralized, transparent.
Exactly, nail right on the head. The idea Bitcoin can be manipulated, but because the ledger is open and everybody can see the addresses, there would be a pretty way for the SEC or other cryptographers to be able to figure out who is the one doing the manipulation. And because there's a cap on how much Bitcoin's available, it's not the same where you can manipulate the price of Bitcoin as you can, say, gold that JP Morgan has done.
You can follow all the activity online.
Exactly.
It's highly unlikely.
Well, it had to be that because he understands, Kathy. He's got enough. Not many people do. A lot of people don't have enough knowledge about how it works to make an informed decision about Bitcoin. He taught at MIT so he understands
He's a
that
professor
it's not a Ponzi scheme or a Beanie Baby.
Right.
So there has to be something else.
Well, I don't know what it is. I have wondered. There's speculation that he's interested in the Treasury Secretary position at some point. What does the Treasury Secretary do?
Protecting fiat for the government?
I mean, very focused on. I don't know. I don't understand it myself, because he definitely understands.
He understands. So there's something else.
There's something.
Okay, but how much do you account for the move in Bitcoin as speculation on an ETF being approved? And is it a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of situation, or is it just a straight shot if, in fact, that were to come to be passed?
I think most institutional investors would probably put a big lump sum in here and there. I think for the most average Joe in the U.S. or across the world, for that matter, probably more likely are dollar cost averaging, just doing a little bit every week, a little bit every month into an asset like this. Of course, full disclosure, this is not any recommendation for any sort of investment or any sort of purchase into Bitcoin or anything else. That more than likely, larger institutions will put a lump sum in here and there, while the average person's probably going to just put a little bit as they get paid over time.
Anticipation, and there could even be a sell on the news. But the fundamentals, we put out a Bitcoin monthly piece every month, and you can see the health of the network using our on-chain metrics. The health of the network is
crazy,
almost as good as it gets. And it seems like this is a bull market. Sure, we'll have puts and takes. Nothing goes straight up. But I think this flight to quality, Larry Fink used that expression. We call it flight to safety. You look at what happened during the regional bank crisis. Bitcoin went from 19,000 to nearly 30,000 as the KRE, the regional bank stock index, was
ETF.
imploding. If you look at the bank stock index today, it is back down close to where it was in March. So when
never recovered.
Larry might say flight to quality, which is good, it's true. We would say flight to safety, because there's no counterparty risk in Bitcoin.
Unless you have your Bitcoin on an exchange such as Celsius, Kraken, Voyager. Kraken hasn't gone under yet, but Celsius and Voyager did. But the only counterparty risk is if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange versus having it in cold storage in your own wallet.
terms of that is launching, that invests in equities related to Bitcoin, what do you think will be the better performer over, let's say, 5 years? An ETF that invests in the equity related to Bitcoin or Bitcoin itself?
Bitcoin itself.
We believe Bitcoin will be the better performer
Obviously.
Longer term. But this is a diversified exposure through equities. There are companies, we're trying to find the company that is going to produce the digital wallet. That will be a very
application for blockchain that involves something that Bitcoin does not lead the world with. Is there something else that you'd put in here?
Sure. The reason we have focused as much on Ether, Ethereum as we have is we think, that is the smart contract network. That is the decentralized finance network.
So Bitcoin
currently the largest smart contract network. However, there's a lot of people who believe that Ethereum is a plane in flight that needs repairs as it's being flown, and hopefully the plane doesn't crash. There are other contract trying to compete against Ethereum. The other top one that comes to mind would be Cardano. I know a lot of folks don't like it, but the way that they have started to address their smart contract platform comes from a much I could say, where they want to get all the research, all the building done of the plane first before they take off. So they're probably late to the game, but hopefully for them, theirs would be, we've got the plane all built together right the first time. We can do some minimal repair. But Ethereum is kind of a bird in flight with a lot of problems that is taking place right now. So I wouldn't say that Ethereum is going to be the top smart contract dog forever. It is at the moment. We'll see, of course, history will tell. But if you look 10 years ago, the top 10 coins that were on they're more than they were a couple years ago.
So
Bitcoin and Ether.
idea.
Anything beyond that?
Well, there are infrastructure players. Solana is doing a really good job. I mean, if you look at Ether was faster and cheaper than Bitcoin in the day. That's how we got Ether. Solana is even faster and cost-effective than Ether. So, there are infrastructure plays. We do believe Web3, digital assets.
Web3.
That's a big idea, actually. Digital assets with property rights. First time ever online that we're seing property rights.
Do you think that some bears with Bitcoin have said, okay, there will be a Bitcoin 2.0 that someone comes up with? I don't know whether there's something more perfect.
There were so many
is there anything more perfect?
Bitcoin
Can there
Cash.
be something more perfect?
I've already tried it.
I think most people understand that Bitcoin is the money revolution. This is the first global.
A lot of people don't understand that because they haven't read anything about it.
Right, private, so no government oversight, digital, very important, rules-based monetary system in history. And Art Laffer, my professor, mentor, and friend, when we did our first paper on and took our first position in Bitcoin in 2015. When he understood what this was, he said, I've been waiting for this since they closed the gold window in 1971.
Introducing the job on what's going on in the ecosystem here, laying out some of her new ETFs that she's trying to put through. During the interview, was trying to really get in. He knows a lot about Bitcoin. He's read the Bitcoin Standard. He's come up against a few other folks who don't have a clue in the industry. So I think he had a really good idea of what's going on as well, and I think he enjoys having some people who are Bitcoin believers as well. This will be really interesting to see what happens over the next couple of months here. Again, ARK Invest, 21 shares, their final deadline is coming up in January. There's a small window here where all of his ETFs could all be approved. I think that would be absolutely nuts. But we're all kind of waiting to see what'll take place here in January. So if you like what you saw, I know this is kind of a long one. I wanted to try to do something a bit different here today, but I appreciate you sticking through to the end. As always, make sure to hit the like button below. Subscribe if you want to see more content. Stay informed, stay inquisitive, stay subscribed for more, and we'll see you tomorrow.